Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, September 22nd. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. I've got the brightest forehead in the business thanks to, I think it's noon, midday sun, and a newly painted building across from mine. It's painted white and it's just reflecting everything on me. So if you're watching us on YouTube,
all I heard is you painted your forehead white.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're watching it, you're like, what's wrong with his face? Like, well,
I can't see.
I'm blind, kind of like can't see my own notes, but and yeah, I'm blinding Eno on the other end. So we're doing great. But on this episode, we're going to take a closer look at a few more implications of the upcoming rule changes. We're going to talk about some late arriving, potentially useful endgame players into the pool because there's been a few more call-ups that have probably gone a little under the radar in the last couple of weeks. We've got a prospect of the week segment on the rundown. We'll see if we actually get that far. And we've got at least one candidate in our weird seasons category by request, Chris Taylor. So we'll get to him a little bit later on in the show. But I was thinking a lot about stolen bases because you wrote about the rule changes, some of the stuff we've been talking about in the podcast recently, and the good luck Noah Syndergaard vibes, I think is it's kind of an overlooked aspect of this. Is like which pitchers who get run on a lot now are going to be dealing with even more guys taking advantage of the circumstances. And you and I were going back and forth before we started recording. One simple thing that I had not thought about, we were talking about the time for runners to get from first to second while stealing a base, right? Bases are bigger, they're a little closer together, therefore that number is smaller. But I had not thought about where the fielder is at second base on a caught stealing attempt. He's now closer to home plate. So that pop time, the time for the catcher to get the ball down to second base, is also going to be a little bit shorter, and that might reduce some of the increase in stolen bases that people are expecting.
Yeah, I did some math where basically I said if a guy is 4.5 seconds to first base, that's a good proxy actually for getting to second base because it requires some like some getting going, right? Like sprint speed is not actually a great measure for this because that's like a top speed. So we've said in the past that Jeff Zimmerman has found that times to first are more predictive than sprint speed in terms of stealing bases. So if you're 4.5 to first and it used to be 90 feet, and then it is now 88.5 or 89.5 feet, you're now 4.7, about 4.47. So it really doesn't move you that much on the curve. And I was saying that might take somebody, on the curves I was drawing, that might take somebody that's taking off in 5% of their opportunities when they can to taking off like 7% of the time when they get to first base. So I don't think that we're going to see any 70 steal guys, along with the fact that it's a shorter throw to second. I don't think we're going to see any 70 steal guys. But I do think there's a population where it's super interesting, which is the guys who are 4.5. So the guys who are like sub 4.5, like 4.3, 4.2, I've got the spreadsheet here. I can tell you who those guys are. 4.3, 4.2, that's Ozzie Albies, Jorge Mateo, CJ Abrams, O'Neill Cruz, Bryson Stott is a 4.2, Jose Siri. I mean, these are the fastest guys in the game. Cody Bellinger's still a 4.2. So Harrison Bader's a 4.25. Those are the fastest guys in the game. And I think they will take off more. I don't think it'll turn Trey Turner from a 25 steal guy to a 50 or, I've seen mentions of 70. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll those 25s will turn into 30s, that sort of deal. I actually think it would be kind of, those guys take off a lot. If you look at it, Harrison Bader takes off 22% of the time that he has the opportunity to take off. The league average is 5. So he's taking off 4 times more than the average guy at first. So like, what are we saying? He's going to take off half of the times he's on base. We're going to just double that. Because of 4 at 5 inches, I don't know. So I think the most interesting are the guys who are 4.4, 4.5 to first base because those guys right now are decently fast and they steal some bases. I'm thinking of guys like Tony Kemp is 4.5 to 4.5 to first base. Tyrone Taylor is 4.5 to first base. Ha-Seong Kim, Jurickson Profar. These are guys who steal 5 or 10 bases. What if the math changes? What if those guys steal 17, 18? You know, what if the go no go line is so different for them that they're like they actually double their do you think that what's the over under for Trey Turner stolen bases next year?
If I'm making a line right now,
it's not 50, right?
No, I look. What do I think the sports books will put out there? Probably something in the neighborhood of 36 and a half.
There you go. Okay, that's decent, but it's not double. But there's going to be some guys in this 4-5 territory where they're going to double their stolen bases. You know, there's going to be some guys who had 7 who are going to have 15. You know, and I had in the piece I had an example of like Luis Urias and Joey Gallo, guys who had like 2 or 5 stolen bases next year. They might have 10 next year. I just don't think that the top end guys are going to double their production. So, that's my guess.
The thinking here. So just to kind of clarify the hypothesis is that the burners, the guys that already are among the league leaders in stolen bases, they take off more, like at a greater percentage of the opportunities they have to run. They already take advantage of so many of those chances that number is not going to go up that much because they already run a lot. But the math for them is not going to be changed by 4 inches. Like they're so fast that, you know, they steal the bases off the pitcher. That's something that's true. You steal the base more off the pitcher than the catcher. So they just take off as much as they can. Yeah. And the Bobby Wood Jr. takes off 21% of the time he has the opportunity to. And those slightly slower guys who are still fast enough to steal bases, they will run more because they don't maximize their opportunities currently. They're a little more selective. And they're also, the math is so close for them. That's why they don't go. The go, no go line is so important for them. Turner is like, you know, I know when I can go, and I go most of the time that I know I can go, and I'm successful, you know. Somebody who steals 5 or 10 bases is more like, it has to be like Noah Syndergaard. Yeah, right. Like I'm going to steal on Noah Syndergaard. I don't know about anybody else. So maybe then they can steal on some other guys as well. So I just think that there's a math for no go, and it's really scienced out right now. And the guys who are right on the cusp will get the green light more often. I guess the only other thing that changes the equation that we haven't talked a ton about is the limited number of disengagements, as they call them, the throwovers. Which is, you have to do that if you have a pitch clock. Because if you don't have a limit on throwovers and you have a pitch clock and somebody's just getting close to their time, they just throw over to first base. Yeah, they just reset it that way. Yeah. So I think that could be the other part of this that does increase attempts overall, knowing that they can't come over potentially without there is a weird third. You can have a third throw over as long as you catch him. Right. So I think there'll be more pitch outs maybe. Because if you had your 2 and you think the guy's going, do a pitch out. So we'll see. Yes, that will have an effect on it. And if I'm wrong, I think that's the part I'm getting wrong, is that will allow, longer leads, and especially on the third after the 2 throwovers. But then we had the shift rules, and mea culpa here for misunderstanding a rule that was on the books. The way that the rule is stated, I think it is such: every team has to designate 2 infielders on each side of second base. And this is the part I did not get, who may not switch sides during the game, except if there's a substitution for one of those infielders. So the only way that Jorge Polanco can go play short is if the shortstop is out. Right. And then they bring someone else there for the rest of the game. So there might be still some substitutions where at a high impact point of the game, a high leverage point of the game, they're just like, we just need to do this right now. But that means you can only do it once per game or twice per game, depending on how many substitutions you have. It does not mean. And then also, some people pointed out that people don't usually get
increased position eligibility for switches within games or within like plays. And I was remembering Anthony Rizzo having second base eligibility. Remember that?
Yeah, so it comes down to whether or not the stats provider or the league commissioner that you're using, if it looks at games started by position or games played at position, where an appearance within a game might count for the latter, but not the former because it's not a start.
Yeah, so we won't see a radical increase in position eligibilities, probably. I also don't think that we're going to see a lot of outfielders playing behind second base. We were just outlining before we started here this situation. Let's say it does make sense to play your outfielder. You're going to say, we just really don't think this guy's going to hit to left field. This lefty is going to hit to left field. We're going to give up the chance of maybe anything that goes to left field is a double. We just don't think he does it at all. So we're going to send that outfielder over to play rover. While Joey Gallo, let's call him Joey Gallo. While Joey Gallo is stepping to the plate, you can do that. You can probably jog your guy over. You'll have enough time. It's not just the 15 seconds. You have the walk-up song. You have him coming to the plate. You can walk a guy over. Now, let's say it gets to 2 strikes and your scouting says Joey Gallo with 2 strikes will try to go to the other side. Now your outfielder has 7 seconds to sprint across the field and find his spot over and left. And maybe you can do that, but how often do you want your outfielders doing that? So maybe in year 3, 4, or 5, we will see outfielders sprinting around the outfield. But I doubt we see it in year 1. And some of my evidence for that is there are no teams right now doing anything radical. Like you think like the A's or the Nationals or the Marlins, they could be trying out radical stuff right now in anticipation of these moves. We don't see that yet. If we don't see anything that radical in spring, I doubt we're going to see it during the season. When you saw 4 outfielders, you saw it in spring first. Yeah,
so a good test of what we might actually get when the games count, what they're willing to show us in March.
Plus, the teams want to try it and see if the commissioner says they're breaking rules, right?
Are we breaking rules? Are we comfortable doing this? Is this exhausting? And
you'll see it. You'll see them try in spring. So the outfielder thing is something to watch for in spring, I think. And then I stand by our initial analysis that on the individual player level, we were not going to see that many more hits. I think the biggest beneficiaries, and these are very similar to the ones we talked about on the show, when I really drilled down, the biggest beneficiaries were Matt Olson, Rowdy Tellez, and Charlie Blackmon, all getting about plus 10 hits. Corey Seager's at about plus 6. So there are players who are going to get more hits, but I think in one of our examples, we gave someone 14 hits and it upped their average like 10 points. That would be a really high end. So I know that some people were talking about people upping their average 20 or 30 points, and I don't think I see it.
It can happen, but it won't happen solely because of this rule change. It's going to happen alongside of regression and other things.
Right, exactly. Yes. Don't tell me that someone with like a 230 BABIP this year who has like a 320 BABIP this year, it's like all because of the shifts.
No, it's like, oh, he also hit the ball harder. Oh, right. Well, that's a new thing that actually matters even more. Thank you.
And second order effects where they see what's going on and change their batted ball distribution. And I don't know if that'll happen in year 1 because, for example, we had a launch angle revolution, right? The ball was flying in 2019 and all through the juice ball era from 2015. Everyone's like, oh my God, you got to put the ball in the air, elevate to celebrate, all this stuff. And the average launch angle across the league went up like not even a full degree. So it's like
elevate to celebrate.
Elevate to celebrate. So, man. I think second order effects, like, they're going to try and hit it over there. That'll take some time.
Yeah, I like the piece. I think people should check it out. theathletic.com/rates and barrels. If you don't have a subscription already, you can see it in greater detail, some nice charts. Pretty much anytime you cite Cameron Grove in a story or on the podcast, there's something pretty interesting there too. So just a lot to to unpack as we continue preparing for these new rules here in 2023. Let's get to some late arrivals, some useful endgame players. I thought that we were finally done seeing prospects getting opportunities. Turns out I don't really know anything. I'm just guessing all the time and walking through life with a shiny forehead and a blindfold on. So yeah, that's just me. That's just where I tend to be most days. Ezequiel Tovar is getting a look from the Rockies. And I think if you're looking for a tooled up player that has the talent to help you potentially in every category, I mean, it's his first taste of big league competition, so there's plenty of ways it could go wrong as well. You might not find a more exciting player debuting this late in the season than Tovar. If you've missed out on the other waves of prospects, this is pretty exciting news. I think one of the few drawbacks is something that came up on the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast last week. The Rockies end their season, I think, with a 6-game series against the Dodgers. So a lot of Dodger pitching
3 of them are at home.
Well, I think it's all in LA because it's the makeup games from the first week of the schedule getting tacked back onto the back.
No.
So you don't get the Colorado games.
As if the Dodgers needed more help. Are you kidding me?
I believe that's exactly what it is.
Oh, what a cruel world. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Colorado.
I mean, they'll be fine. But yeah, starting Friday the 30th, they have a 3-game series with the Dodgers that
maybe
then
the Dodgers will rest a lot of
3-game
guys.
series. Maybe, but like their 15th best pitcher in their organization
It's probably still pretty good.
Okay.
Michael Grove can still shut him out. Yeah, I mean the fun thing with Tovar is it's pretty hard to kind of spot a weakness. There have been times when he didn't walk that much, but there's been other times where he has walked an above average rate. He's always made good contact. The power has been there ever since A-ball, so I believe in that. There is a question if it's like average, above average power, or if he's going to tap into more than that. So he could be more I guess, I don't want to say worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, he doesn't work out. But a reasonable expectation for him might be 275, 15-15 next year. I think he could push Rogers to second.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
Especially if he's playing now, they believe in him, and as long as he doesn't fall on his face. And then the hope is you pay for that and you get, I don't know, 290, 25, 15, 25, 10. Maybe I think if he starts hitting for more power, he may not steal as much, but that's just what happens with young players. But I mean, there's nothing. If you're in one of those leagues where it's the guy has to be in the major leagues before you can pick him up. This is like a real boon.
This is huge in those leagues because Tovar has increased his stock so much this year that he may have been previously unrostered. And I think that's what's really, really pretty wild about all this. It's yet another player who is spending very little time at AAA. I mean, there's also the group of players who have spent no time at AAA, already young for the level. Tovar just turned 21 on August 1st. So the season he had was a big success. Missed some time, I believe, with like a hamstring injury, a pretty minor injury that he had in the middle part of the summer. But 13 homers, 17 steals, and 20 attempts in 66 games for someone that just turned 21 at the AA level. That's incredible. And I think they will accommodate him. His defense will be prioritized. They'll shuffle things around. I have a hard time setting fair expectations for guys that get a test like this, because I thought Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris and some of the guys we've seen come up this year would be challenged to consistently hit big league pitching, and I'm wrong about them. Like, not that I think they'd be good players in the long run. I like Harris a lot in the long run. He's proven me wrong again and again and again throughout his rookie season. So all of this is making me more open-minded about what a player can do upon arrival when an organization trusts them to move this quickly.
Yeah, I hope it's not just let's take a look because Rodgers is hurt and Rodgers is still going to start at short beginning next season. It's still a possibility.
It's possible, but I don't think that's what's going on here. But it's not just Ezequiel Tovar. I think we had a prospect of the week, Jordan Diaz, a few weeks ago. He's getting a chance with the A's right now, and it makes sense. He's 22 years old, just turned 22 in the middle part of August. Missed a little time with some injuries, put up great numbers both at AA and AAA this year. 19 homers combined over 120 games. Good average. OBP, not as high as you'd expect, if only because the walk rate's been living in that 5% range, but he makes a ton of contact. A player that I really like, and I'm glad we're getting a look at him in these final weeks of the season because I think he can actually help in some of our deeper leagues, and I think there's a good chance he sticks and is a part of the opening day lineup for the A's in 2023.
I think so too. Seem comfortable in the clubhouse. One place that I don't see, it didn't seem super comfortable to me, was second base. I thought he made a few plays. I just was there on Tuesday. He was playing second base, and I thought he looked uncomfortable there. He booted a play, even a play that he made. It was one of the things where it was one of those Adam plays where the runner was slow and it went right to him, and he still took a while to get the ball up and throw it to first. Like, it was way closer than it should have been, and it took him. He didn't seem comfortable out there at second base. So I would say he's definitely a third baseman for me. For Fangraphs, he was a 35/55 fielder. So I think that sort of agrees with what I'm saying. In the minor leagues this year, he played 41 games at first, 7 games, or I have to add them all up, 10 games at third.
Yeah.
So
it's strange because he did not play well defensively last year. Again, young for the level. In 2021, 52 games for Diaz at third base. He had an .875 fielding percentage.
That's low.
Remember we don't usually fielding use percentage that low.
We don't usually use numbers like that. But, the reason we don't use fielding percentage usually is because a guy with exceptional tools can maybe get to balls that other people can't. That's not what's happening.
Right. Yeah. This isn't freak athleticism, gets to every ball and then can't make the throw because it's an impossible throw. It's more probably doesn't play on the left side of the infield. Is he a first baseman? Can we hide him at second base, or do we have to think about even putting him on left field?
With the shift rules, that's what I had with Cameron in there, was that there's more pressure on second baseman range, and if he's got an 8.75 and looks the way he does to me, to the eye in the field, they are trying Dermis Garcia there at first, and Garcia's hitting for power, but he's also striking out 45% of the time. So it may end up just being a little bit of a battle there, or some sort of platoon. They're both righties. Maybe they're the first baseman and the DH for this team next year. But I don't think either of them has defensive value. And if I had to pick one, I'd pick Diaz.
Well, they do meet the requirements for the A's of being league minimum salary players. So first base and DH make all the sense in the world.
Also, I've been asking around, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure about this. And if there's any agents listening or any team officials, I know we got a few that listen. So Elvis Andrus has an option that vests at 550 plate appearances. He was released by the A's this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure they thought, no chance he makes it to 550. Guess how many plate appearances Elvis Andrus has?
Well, I just looked it up as you were talking.
521.
I know he's playing a lot. It's going to be a photo finish. I think he's going to get there.
They have 13 games. 521. He needs 29. in 13 games. He needs 2.2 plate appearances per game by the White Sox. And he's been playing so well for the White Sox that even if Tim Anderson's come back, he might play some second base, dude.
Yeah.
If he gets to 550. This is the part I'm not so sure about, but I'm pretty sure it is. The way it works is he was released, he cleared waivers. The A's are responsible for the rest of his contract. The White Sox are paying the minimum wage for him. And if he gets to 550, the option vests and the A's will owe Elvis Andrus $15 million next year.
Is it safe to say that Elvis Andrus, in that situation that you just outlined, would be the highest paid player on the A's payroll in 2023?
Yes. And if it does happen, I think it's even less. I think it's like they just won't spend money on anybody. They won't even do the Jed Lowry thing. They'll just be like, oops, there goes all of our free agent money.
I mean, this is mind-blowing because they had a payroll of $83 million on opening day of 2021.
Yeah.
They had an opening day payroll of $47 million, according to COTS.
Maybe they wanted this to happen so they could be like, it looks like they're spending more than they are.
No, they didn't want this to happen.
I don't think so. I think they didn't think he'd get to 550. I think
they thought he wouldn't sign somewhere else, and if he did, he wouldn't play as much as he's played. But he has played really well. He's one home run away from a 15-15 season. This is actually pretty cool that Elvis Andrus is being productive again.
Yeah. The defense isn't great, but since he was a good defensive shortstop to begin with, he's been all right. The best WRC plus of his career, thanks to, the rest of the league sort of cratering around him. I was texting one agent about it, and he thought it was funny. And I said something about the A's, and he said, well, F them. Of course, the agents don't like the A's.
I'm not even dependent upon commission salary. I agree. I don't like what they're doing right now either. It's just kind of gross. So I'm out on that. But some other players that might be.
How about this one? Let's see. Let's see if I can mess this one up.
Yep.
Miles Mastrobuoni.
That's pretty good. I'm gonna get 8 out of 10 at least. Right. I think that was good.
My wife yells at me in Italian for some reason.
Really?
Yes. That is her chosen language of yelling.
It is a good rage language.
Yeah. So Mastrobuoni makes a lot of contact, and I would say probably doesn't have that much power. He's showing a 170 ISO in the minors, but he also has 23 stolen bases. And what I've learned is that when you've got a fast player with like a 150 to 170 ISO, a lot of times those are leg doubles. I call this the Esturi Ruiz rule. So I think interesting guy to pick up. He wants stolen bases. He can play. Let's see where he's played this. Oh my gosh. Where he's played chart is just so hard
everywhere.
to read. Everywhere. Yeah. He's in 2022, he's played right field, center field, left field, shortstop 13 times, third base only twice, second base 57 times. So Lau is out, right?
Yeah, he's hurt again.
So
tough lost season for him.
And he was Lau, right? Or he was Low? Which was Brandon? God,
Lau.
Remember, he's Lau. Okay.
We should do flashcards.
So Mastrobuoni could get some starts at second. It's not like Walls has been hitting the cover off the ball. And if he does, and center, I mean, Siri, I don't know. I don't really get the obsession. I've talked with Twitter people about Siri. 80 WRC plus, it's all defense. You could make Siri your Brett Phillips sort of defensive backup, in which case you could start Mastrobuoni sometimes in center. So I don't know. I don't think he's a definite pickup, but if you're desperate for stolen bases in like an AL only, he might be someone to look at.
Where did this power come from? Where did the efficiency as a base stealer come from? He's 26 at AAA. He's been at the level for parts of 3 different seasons. We're talking about a cup of coffee in 2019, nothing of real significance. But he's a much better player at the same level this year than he was a season ago.
But also, to be fair, like most of his full sample seasons have been above average by WRC plus too. So you're not like a out of nowhere guy. But you're right. In terms of stolen bases, his previous high was 15 or 18. He got caught 7 times that year. Then he stole 15 at one level and got caught 13 times. This year he's stolen 23 and only been caught 3 times.
Yeah.
So it still bodes well for him to do any. 16 homers, I think, is a bit of an outlier.
Looking for some other guys that might fit into this conversation.
5 last year.
Matt Wallner in Minnesota getting a chance to play. It's all power mostly. I mean, he was in the Futures game back in July.
They've got Wallner and Cave playing there pretty regularly with Kepler and Buxton out, but both those guys really swing and miss.
Yes, a lot of swing and miss in the profile. Even as we saw at AA this year, Wallner started the year there, 31.3% K rate, got down to 27.5% in 50 games at AAA. I think he's going to hit a ton of barrels. He walks, but he's just that sort of player where it's probably a low batting average despite the ability to do some damage.
Yeah, and their swing and miss rates are way higher than somebody like Mark Mathias.
Yep.
Who right now is sporting a 35% strikeout rate as a second baseman, I guess, in Texas. But he has a much lower swing strike rate. His is like 11.6 to Wallner's 19. And Mathias has a history of better strikeout rates. I picked up Mathias in a couple places just in case it's lightning in a bottle. They seem to not be in love with Nick Solak, and they've tried a bunch of people in that sort of, I guess it's not second base, outfield, backup infielder, situation. I think mostly the opportunity lies for the Rangers in the outfield. Should we revisit Bubba Thompson? We've had some people question if we're right about him or not.
Yeah, I know he's the ultimate Nando guy. We talked about him a little bit on Under the Radar yesterday, and I kind of chuckled at the Bubba Thompson recommendation when Nando made it, and I think if you picked him up for cheap speed, you've been rewarded. He's held his own as a hitter.
Bases, Jesus.
Yeah, he's offering a lot of speed. He's shown power in the minors. We haven't seen it in the big leagues yet. I'm still a little skeptical, but at the same time, there's a window for playing time there, and he might have to begin next season on the depth chart as a bench outfielder. He may have to earn a larger share of playing time depending on what they do in free agency, but I'm slowly coming around at least to the point where I see him as a viable deep league source of steals that you could actually trust going into next season. Mixed leagues right now, he's playing enough you can just use him. I still think there are a lot of long-term questions about the type of player he's going to be.
Yeah, I just think it's weird to have this kind of profile be playing left field. He doesn't barrel the ball. He doesn't hit the ball hard. He hits the ball on the ground a lot. He doesn't make a lot of contact. So there's really a lot of pressure put on his legs. Maybe with the new rules, maybe he's like a 40 steal guy that has like a 310 on base percentage and a 330 slugging next year, and he makes it work. But I don't know. This is not the type of profile that I go for.
But I think it's going to come down to things like how valuable is he defensively. If he's a great defender,
he's playing left field. Yeah,
he should be an above average defender in left with speed like that, right? I mean,
he looks like a defensive backup to me, except he's playing left field. That's what I don't get.
Yeah, it's a tricky profile to sort out.
If you don't believe in him too much, I think that's the biggest sort of center and left are the biggest, because I think Adolis can play center. So there's 2 spots in the outfield that are up for grabs. And you've got Mark Mathias, Josh Smith, maybe Bubba Thompson, and then X, Y, or Z.
Leody Taveras is still there.
Yeah.
Close to a league average line right now.
Yeah.
Showing some speed, a little bit of power. It's kind of what you'd
That's what I'm
expect
just
from him.
saying. You cannot have an outfield of Garcia, Leotis Tavera, and Bubba Thompson. I'm sorry. That's not a winning outfield.
Guardians pull that kind of BS.
But the Guardians' collective strikeout rate for those three guys would be like 12%.
Yeah, that is the main difference, right?
The collective strikeout rate for these guys would be like 28%.
I was skeptical of the Adolis Garcia call when Nando made that one too. And Garcia, after a bad second half last year, came back this year and had a monster year. What do you do with Adolis Garcia next year? What I threw this out there yesterday, and Nando expects more of the same. He's like, if he was going to collapse, it would have happened this year, and he might be right.
Well, I mean, he's 30, so I don't think the collapse will come right away, but I think the collapse will come earlier than people expect. And he does hit the ball really hard, and he does have prodigious tools, great arm, fast. He's going to make the most of his balls in play and his opportunities on base, and maybe the stolen base rules will help him there too. I think probably I wouldn't play him in center. So if you want to go Adolis Garcia, Leotis Taveras, then that's fine. But I just don't think you put Bubba Thompson next to those two. You know what I mean?
Then Bubba's the fourth outfielder, and you're probably, I still think Michael Conforto in Texas makes a lot of sense. If he's healthy, put him in left field. Bubba Thompson can platoon with him a little bit, play some center if Taveras doesn't work out. And I think you're in a good spot.
Depends on kind of what the walking papers for the new regime are a little bit. Is it like build from within? Then Mark Mathias has a shot. And then Mark Mathias will be in a group of 5 that are out there trying to beat Bubba Thompson out of that left field spot. Yeah,
the Mathias stuff is pretty strange because he was in the Brewers organization earlier this year. 8 homers, 8 steals, 50 games at AAA. He's 27, so he should be good. But it was with a high walk rate, with a pretty good K rate. It was actually a valuable overall offensive line.
It reminds me a little bit of like Mark Canha coming up through that system.
Yeah, and he's flashed power and speed around some pretty big injuries too. I think Mathias had a bad injury in 2021, like a shoulder or something that cost him the whole season. So he may have had a shot.
He had 16 games between 2019 and 2022.
So yeah, you got to look at him and say, well, he's 28, but he also would have probably played a little more in the big leagues if he were healthy the last few seasons.
Yeah, so I think he's interesting. I think he's like a super deep league keeper, like, stash dynasty, like, see what happens. If they don't sign an outfielder, I think there's a possibility that there's a pop-up outfielder in Texas next year. I don't have a lot of faith in Taveras either. So there's a chance that you play Garcia in center. Taveras is the backup. Thompson is up and down again. And you have, you have 2 outfield spots that are available in Texas.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well. Edward Olivares playing a lot again for the Royals.
Oh, he'll be back down again.
Yes. Is there any reason to think this is going to last? He's producing this season 40 games, 304, 357, 443. Okay, that's pretty good. 20% K rate, that's fine. Barrel rate's not bad, 5.6%. It's not good, but it's not bad either. All right.
Yeah, he's kind of a jack of all trades guy. You know what I mean? Like nothing is elite. I actually kind of like this kind of profile where it's like, he's not an atrocious chaser. He doesn't walk a lot, but he doesn't not walk. He's not like a guy who has a 10% strikeout rate, but a 20% strikeout rate in this game is above average, is better than average. His swinging strike rate is better than average. His barrel rate is about average. It's like everything's average, He's out of options, There's got to be.
I think this is his last year of options.
Right. So
he'll be out next year.
Next year is the pooper get off the potty moment. The Royals will know you can't move him up and down. Kyle Isbell to me is more defense forward. So I could see Isbell taking over Taylor in center. Is Taylor a free agent?
I feel like they signed Michael Taylor forever, even though they didn't. It was the 2-year deal that somehow has lasted 5 years.
But, he's got one more, but it's a 2-year, $9 million deal. So Taylor can be the backup. So I think Isbell, Waters, Taylor is some sort of solution for center field, right? And then they've been playing Melendez in the outfield. I don't think that's ideal, but you could do Melendez at catcher outfield, I guess. That's a little bit weird. You got Vinny at DH or first base. I don't know. They're still feeling some stuff out here, aren't they? They've kind of moved past Lopez. Maybe they give Adalberto Mondesi another chance at third, and they go Adalberto, Bobby Witt, Massey, Pascantino on the infield. Melendez is a DH catcher with Sal, and center field is Taylor Waters, Olivares. Taylor Waters, Isbell. That leaves left field for Olivares. So I think he might be the starter to begin the season. I don't believe much in Nate Eaton, who also should be on our list of young players that are getting a lot of playing time. What's strange is I know he has a different defensive background, but I get more kind of Nicky Lopez vibes where he's just fast.
I think you just named 14 players for 9 spots for the Royals. They need
no.
pitching,
I mean,
so.
Witt's in, Pascantino's in, Perez and Melendez are probably CDH.
Yeah,
so those are 3
playing,
locked in positions.
Yeah,
I'm not that interested in any of the other players I mentioned, by the way. In terms of Eden, I think Dozier even, he had like a nice little bit this year, but I'm not that interested in going forward. I'm not that interested in Michael Massey. So of those players, I'm most interested in Edward Olivares, actually.
I wonder if they're going to set a record for most players non-tendered at a deadline.
That's interesting. I mean, there's going to be some house cleaning for sure with the new regime.
Because they've got a bunch of guys who are ARB 2 and ARB 3. They are a small market team that controls costs. So maybe it's minor trades for some of those guys too. Yeah, I mean, Mondesi, what do you do with Mondesi? Really? Change in the front office. Dayton Moore's gone. He's no longer the president of baseball operations. JJ Piccolo taking over. Looks like he's going to keep the spot. It's not just an interim thing, at least based on what we know right now. How much are the Royals really going to change? I think it's more of an open question. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have as much of a shift as the Tiger. We talked about the 3-0 show and talked about the Tiger situation. That feels like a bigger organizational change.
Yeah, because they're leaving Piccolo in power, but
he can still change things. He can still fix the pitching problem or try to in his way. That's possible.
I think in his situation, he might actually trade some of these. Like I already did one where they did Manuel Rivera for Luke Weaver. I could see them trading some of these. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about Nicky Lopez, Ryan O'Hearn, Hunter Dozier.
Right. Guys like that don't seem like they're going to be around in this organization much longer.
Yeah, for pitching. And I don't actually see them cutting Brad Keller or Amir Garrett or Scott, obviously not Scott Barlow, but like I don't see them cutting any of their arbitration pitchers because I think what they'll think they can do is improve the pitching program and improve the pitchers they already have by improving the coaching. At least that's what I would do. If I was put in charge of the Royals, I would clean house on the pitching program.
Yeah, I think that's the first place we expect to see the big changes there, but a handful of players for sure that just look like they don't quite fit in the organizational plan, and by some means they'll probably be playing elsewhere next season.
Are you ready to admit defeat on Nick Senzel?
Oh yeah. Of course.
Are you ready to anoint his successor as Mike Ciani?
I'm less eager to do that, but I'm open to any and all players getting chances in Cincinnati right now because we know it's a great place to hit. It takes average power and makes it above average power, at least in terms of the home run output goes. The thing about Ciani, 49 for 61 as a base stealer, and the kind of guy that doesn't strike out a lot, gets on base because he draws his walks. Yeah, okay, I can get on board with this profile as one that is
career high
exciting.
102 WRC plus in AA.
Pretty young for the level.
Yeah,
most of his stops.
Left-hander.
Age appropriate.
I'd say this guy's like a draft and hold, steals, bench, like 8th outfielder.
Yeah, he looks more like a bench outfielder than the long-term solution, but they've got a few long-term solutions that are not that far away from the big leagues. So maybe 2023 is an audition year for players like Ciani. Maybe he just lands in the right spot.
I think organizationally they have more infielders than outfielders coming up. So they may have a round of trying some outfielders and then moving infielders to the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting situation there. I like Steer, but he's not playing as much as I thought. He got a little bit hurt. That might just be it. 64 plate appearances, not bad. But no barrels. Very few barrels so far.
What about this name? Akil Baddoo. Remember how people felt about Akil Baddoo back in draft season?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I was out.
You were out, but think about what's happened this year. He got demoted. He's come back, hasn't produced at quite the same level or anything close to what he did last year as a Rule 5 pick. Had a 300, 405, 500 slash line in 30 games at Toledo. Yeah. Playing a little bit more again for the Tigers down the stretch.
Made a lot of contact in Toledo, too.
There's power, there's speed, there's a pretty good eye at the plate. Given that he was making the leap last year from high A to the big leagues, some pullback, some growing pains are not that surprising. Are you in on Baddoo as either a late season roster filler or even the kind of player that if you pick him up really cheap right now, you might actually in a very deep league want to have him on your roster for 2023?
I like that since he's come back, the walk rate is up. The strikeout rate is also 32% since he's come back up. WRC plus is 84. And he's got how many stolen bases? 4 stolen bases and 8 tries since he's come back. 221 average. I think I would throw him in the Ciani bucket.
Fair. How about this? How about pitching help? You got anybody, either starters or relievers, that are getting chances late in the year? It's important. I pointed this out on the waiver show last Friday. Bailey Ober is finally back for the Twins. That's been a long time coming. I think he's one of the better pitchers by projection, at least, that's come back at the end of the season. Who else are you looking at that might be either overlooked because of injuries or just overlooked because they weren't necessarily a top prospect coming through a system, and now they're getting a chance?
Josh Winder's stuff plus is back up again since he's come back up. He took a 2-month detour, and now that he's back, it's looks pretty impressive again. And that's in 67 and 82 pitch stints. So Ober, I think, is probably already gone everywhere you want him. But I think Winder is a decent backup plus. If you want to go even deeper, was it Henriquez? Showed a nice 105 stuff plus in his debut, and he might be the guy replacing Sonny Gray, but also showed 0 command. So definitely more risk. But if Winder's out there, I like him for the rest of the season. I'm now checking the schedule. What does the Twins schedule look like?
Twins have really let me down in recent
weeks. Yeah, you might not get a lot of wins. I mean, they've been really hurt. I mean, Cave, and we just talked about Cave and Wallner, but they end up with the White Sox, but at home and not in Chicago. So that's good. They end up in Detroit, and then they end the season in Chicago. So if I could get a Winder or Ober start at home or in Detroit, I'm into it. And even Henriquez maybe, but that last series I just think in Chicago it can go either way. That park does give up homers.
Yeah, Hayden Wesneski, I think, is still part of this conversation. I think
if he's out
him.
There.
Yeah, I think he's long gone.
Yeah, he's super exciting. This is a forced segue to fit it into this because he fits in this, but also Prospect of the week. My prospect of the week is in the major leagues, and his name is Luis Ortiz.
Luis Ortiz.
And he came up and had a pretty decent start against the Yankees. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 earned, only 3 hits. Also went into Cincinnati and gave up no runs. Has had a decent ground ball rate so far, and Pitching Plus thinks that he is actually ridiculously good, is what Pitching Plus says. I have him right now as this is crazy. He's only 157 pitches. I just want to put that out there. But the number 1 starting pitcher is by Stuff Plus.
That's pretty good. Number 1 pitcher by Stuff Plus. Yeah.
Number 1 starting pitcher.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I think that's worth throwing out there. I now need to see what his ID is. So he's 6'8", 247, because there's another stupid Luis Ortiz. So it says his fastball is a 143 Stuff Plus, and it's characterized as a 4-seam fastball, but it has a lot of sinker properties to it. It says that his sinker, I don't think we have a sinker in here for him. It says the slider is great and his changeup is great. So I guess the one thing that could make you nervous is he's just thrown the 4-seam, which is actually a 2-seam, and the slider most of the time. But if the changeup rates well, and he's struck guys out, and he's kept the ball on the ground, and he had an amazing season, with a real breakout season in the minor leagues, where just showed great ground ball rates, great strikeout rates. I know a 4.64 ERA in AA doesn't leap off the page, but it was a really good season, really high swing strike rates. And I think this is going to be one of their breakout pitchers. Him and Roansy Contreras and even Mitch Keller are all very interesting late game plays for me next year, and decent spot starts down the stretch here for me.
Yeah, with the park and the division, plenty of streaming opportunities there. I think the 117 whip gives you a better clue as to where the ERA is likely to go. Probably more of like a mid to high 3s ERA sort of pitcher based on the actual skills that he showed. Didn't have a walks issue. Homers were the problem. They generally have not been a problem for Luis Ortiz. With that arsenal, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a major problem for him in the long run. So I think it's a great call. Just a guy that didn't pop on organizational prospect lists in terms of where he was ranked, but if you read the scouting reports about him, they actually pointed to a guy that could take a step forward, and it's happened, which is nice to see for the Pirates. I'm going to go with Tyler Gentry in the Royals organization, an outfielder. He's put together a nice season. Started the year returning to high A, a little old for the level to be playing there. He turned 23 back in February. Not surprisingly, handled the level very well. Had a 165 WRC plus. Strangely, struck out 25.7% of the time during his time there. Actually cut the K rate in a longer stint at AA this year, much more age appropriate, even though he's still a little bit on the old side there. 16 homers, 8 steals at AA, and basically a half season's worth of games. Showed the power and speed, of course, prior to that. A lot to like here, and I think even though you were naming a lot of depth for the Royals, and he's a righty, so that could work against them. He's very tooled up. Depending on how things clear out, might be a guy that we actually get a pretty good look at, probably in the second half of next season, right? I would imagine this is a player you're going to send to AAA to start the year and see how things go, but an injury or two could open up a path for him.
Yeah, maybe not even just injury. I think probably what's happening, here is the new regime says, hey, we're testing everybody out. You give Olivares a chance at everyday play to begin the season. You probably give Isbell, go Olivares, Isbell, give all the young guys their chances, and then a month or two in the season, one of them has pooped and got or is getting out the potty sort of deal. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if Olivares doesn't start out that well, or if Isbell doesn't really show the offense, then you say, okay, you're more of a organizational depth or a backup piece, and we want to see what this guy Gentry can do.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Olivares gets traded to an organization that wants to play him more. The Royals being out of options say, oh, yeah, you know what? We don't want to deal with this.
We
want
only
a guy
like
that we can send up and
sending
down.
you up and down. Yeah.
And Gentry, he was a third-round pick in 2020, so the age being a little old for the level. He played college ball at Alabama. Like it starts to make a little more sense when you think about the context. It's not like he's been stuck in the minors for 5 years or anything like that. He's still relatively young for his professional career, at least.
If Piccolo had anything to do with that pick, or if he, if he was a Piccolo guy, could go faster than that.
Yeah. So tools are there for Tyler Gentry. It's just a matter of finding an opportunity for him in Kansas City. One more segment before we go. It's called Weird Seasons, and there's only one player we're talking about today. So it's Weird Season the first time. What the heck is going on with Chris Taylor? We had a question from one of our listeners about Taylor, and I thought it was worth bringing up because, with Taylor, there was some swing and miss in the profile previously, and being on the wrong side of 30, I think it was fair to wonder how that might play out over the life of a 4-year deal, since he re-upped with the Dodgers back during the winter. But I didn't think we'd see a jump from a 28.7% K rate last year to a 35.9% strikeout rate. That's a massive leap, among the biggest risers in strikeout rate when I looked at that year-to-year leaderboard. Hitting the ball in the air more than really he has at any point in his career. So I wonder if there's a change in approach or something else going on with Taylor that's caused this change.
Yeah, he's weirdly aggressive given his chase rate. He has a good chase rate, but he's really aggressive in the zone. He's a 50% swing rate, which is not what you expect for a guy who has like a 25% reach rate, or chase rate. So he's just a guy who I think is being too aggressive in the zone. I have seen some analysis that has said that he makes poor decisions on swings, even though it doesn't look like that. Here's a guy who walks. He doesn't chase. You can still make poor decisions within the zone. And so I wonder if he is trying to defend the zone. Basically he thinks he needs to swing at everything inside the zone, and he could be more picky within the zone even. I think he would benefit from swinging less. This is a very aggressive year for him in terms of that swing rate I mentioned being the most of his career, and his zone swing rate being the most of his career. So he still offers a lot of value in his versatility, his defense. It's getting on base a decent amount, given how bad the batting average is. But I think to kind of tap into that power and, return to where he was, he needs to be more disciplined within the zone.
If you had to forecast it right now, he's on track to get to about 450 plate appearances this year. Do you think he plays more, less, or the same in 2023 when we get the final tally for next season?
There's a bit of a question as to what happens to Cody Bellinger, but I think if Cody Bellinger, if you just thought of him as a 1-year, $15 million deal, you keep him in town. Joey Gallo is a free agent. And I kind of doubt that they sign him. Trace Thompson is a bit of a breakout for them. So I could see them I know they're both righties, but I could see them kind of penciling in Taylor and Thompson and perhaps Vargas as a threesome that will paper over any missing spot for them. So basically left field. And they go into the next season looking very much the same. If they have a big acquisition, if they have a big spend, it's going to be at shortstop. I don't think that they shift Taylor back to shortstop. And if they push Lux over to short, then I guess they could go big on Judge.
Hard to imagine. At the same time, not that hard to imagine. Aaron Judge.
It is actually kind of, to me, it's almost hard to imagine the Dodgers without that Turner level star on them next year. Like if they just let Turner go, yes, they can move Lux to short. They can move Taylor to second to partner with Muncy at second. They can find a left fielder. They'll be fine, but they won't be the Dodgers as they were this year.
No, they would theoretically take a decent step back from elite of the elite to like being right with the rest of the pack offensively, which is still amazing, still very good. But that would be taking kind of the Houston approach, George Springer, you're a free
letting some
agent.
guy go.
We got someone else here.
We got Gavin Lux.
Carlos Correa, you're a free agent. Yeah, all right. We'll be all right. We'll figure it out. So they're good enough to do it. It doesn't seem like the way that they're operating at this particular point in time. But definitely a weird season from Chris Taylor. Nice to see the barrel rate is still intact and probably still a guy I'd be comfortable with for draft and hold purposes for 2023.
Oh, I didn't answer your question, did I? I think he's another 450 guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's going back to a max
I don't think he's 600. Yeah.
So know what you're getting into if you take that chance, but I do think there's enough there to roster him, and he's not going to disappear in year 2 of a 4-year deal. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, they're not releasing him or anything.
No, and they'll put him in spots to do as well as he can do, even with any potential limitations. We are going to go on our way out the door. Quick reminder, get a subscription to The Athletic for $1 a month for the first 6 months at theathletic.com/rates and barrels. Oh, you got beer there.
Baltimore. I'm sneaking an old beer of the week. Stuff Plus.
Your beer.
Check it out. Full tilt.
Very nice.
Only beer with heat maps on it.
No, it's another great looking can. They do an awesome job with the art.
Yeah, it was fun.
Looking forward to trying some of that here over the course of the weekend. On Twitter, Eno's at Enosaurus. I am at Derek Van Riper. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.